Is this not the cutest hat you have ever seen? Today I'll show you how to make it in 30 minutes. Hey everyone, welcome to my channel. This is Katie Fehlinger DIY, and if you've never been here, thanks for clicking. I'm Katie, and on this channel I share ideas, techniques, and tutorials like you'll see in this video to help you make your home your happiest place. So if that sounds good to you, if it's something you'd be into, consider subscribing for new content every Thursday, and you can also ring the bell to get notified when new videos go up. So a few weeks back I posted a tutorial to make a chunky knit blanket. I'll link that up here and below in the description if you missed it, but you guys really seemed to like it. Plus, I had some yarn left over, so I thought I would continue the fun with another tutorial using that same yarn. This time we're making this adorable chunky winter hat, and once you get the hang of it, you can knock this project out in 30 minutes. So let's get started. But really quickly, before we get into the tutorial, just a heads up to make sure you watch to the end, because I'll share some sizing tips depending on who you're making this for. Okay, as with all my tutorials, we'll start with a list of what you need, and I'll also link a shopping list of the materials down in the description so you don't have to write this down or go hunting for the stuff on your own. Admittedly though, guys, this is a short list. You need one skein of chunky knit yarn. I like a synthetic chenille yarn. You need one pre-made faux fur Pom Pom and a pair of scissors. That's it, really. So let's get started. Okay, first off, I'm not going to need this entire skein, but we're going to snip off what we don't need later. But I'm going to start here by unwinding a healthy bit of yarn from the skein. From here out, I'll be referring to that as working yarn, and I'm going to tie a simple knot. Nothing fancy here, it's just a plain knot, and tug it nice and tight. Now the reason we're tying this knot is that this type of yarn can fray really easily, so this is going to help us avoid that. And then with your scissors, just trim off the tail as close as you can to the knot. Okay, the next step is to make our first stitch. And to do that, you form a loop with your yarn and place the tail behind the working yarn. And then you'll stick your fingers through and pull that yarn through. You see how that worked? Let me show you again. I have my tail. Form a loop, placing that tail behind, and then wedge your fingers into the loop and pull the working yarn through to make a knot. And then you're going to adjust the loop to the size that you want. So I'm going with about 2 inches or so. I don't want it to be too big or else it'll be too loose. But now I have my first stitch, and from here we're going to form a chain. So to do that, place your fingers through the hole of your first stitch and simply pull the working yarn through to make another loop. And that makes my second stitch. So we're going to just keep continuing this process to create a chain of 12 stitches, pulling the working yarn through each loop. And remember to keep unraveling your working yarn along the way too. You want to keep that flow of yarn coming so that you don't have to tug at the skein. That can actually mess with your stitches and make them look uneven. Of course, you don't want that. Okay, let's count these up. I've got my 12 stitches, so I have all the stitches I need. And now I'm going to turn the chain into a circle and point the tail into the circle so it doesn't get caught up in the next stitches that we're about to make. And now we have to connect these two ends, and eventually we'll be creating stitches around the outer rim of this circle. So take your working yarn, stick your finger through the top or the outermost edge of that very first stitch that you made, so over by your tail, and you're going to pull the working yarn through to create another loop. And now we've connected those ends. Let me show that to you again. We have our chain of stitches, turn it into a circle. I need to connect this circle, so I'm going to go into that very first stitch at the outermost rim and pull my working yarn through to make a loop. And then I'm going to work my way all the way around, making new loops with each of the subsequent stitches. And you can adjust the size of your loops as you go to make sure they all stay the same length. Now you can count stitches as you go, but your clue that you've reached the end of the circle is that you've reached the tail. Now, you're going to notice here that even though we connected our circle of stitches, this still kind of looks like it's separated. Do you see that? So to tighten that up, we're going to take our tail and find the last stitch you just created, then weave that tail through that stitch to basically fake the look of another stitch. And you see how that really tightens up the base of the hat. So now I'll repeat that same process around the circle of stitches to make another row. So you're doing exactly what you did that first time around. pulling your working yarn through to create new loops all the way around the circle for a second row of 12 stitches. So it should sort of look like a flower when you're done. How we doing so far, guys? Let me know in the comments. Just type "with you" so I know that you're following this okay. And I know this can look super tricky, and when I was first getting the hang of it, it totally was, but here's the beauty of this. Even if you screw up, you can just unravel your work and start over. A pain, granted, but you won't have to waste any yarn. You could just try again until you get it. And of course, you can rewatch this tutorial as many times as you need to. Okay, let's keep going. From here, you're going to fold all these stitches in half. So as we knit this hat up, we want the stitches to remain tight and taut. And that means we can't keep knitting in a circle because the stitches would only continue to spread and branch out. So folding the project in half keeps everything closely knit. Get it? I love me a good pun. So this is my third row, and the process is still the same. You're still creating new loops for this row just as before, but you're knitting now with the circle stacked on itself. And now we just continue to make loops all the way around for 8 rows. Okay, I've made all my rows, and I know that I've reached the end because I've reached the tail at the bottom. So you just double check that you have 8 rows, and then you can trim off a tail about 1 foot in length from the working yarn. Okay, now we're going to connect all these loops together to cinch the hat at the top. And to do that, I'm taking that tail I just cut and I'm going to insert it into the next loop over. So watch how I do this. Here's my last stitch with the tail that I just cut. And here's the next one over. I'm going to fold that back and insert my tail through, and you can see how it's connected now. Now repeat that step with the next loop over. Fold it back, insert the tail, and pull it through. And I'll thread my tail through each loop all the way around the circle. Now, you'll know that you've reached the end because you'll have created this full circle, but take your tail through that very first loop just one more time, and that's going to make the top of the hat look totally connected and buttoned up. And now I'm going to pull that tail nice and tight, being careful not to break the yarn. You don't have to put in Herculean strength here. But once you're satisfied with how tight the top of your hat is, we can just tie off that tail. So just like you began the project, you'll do it again here. Just tie a simple knot at the end of the tail and pull it nice and tight. And then trim off the excess as close as you can to the knot. Okay, before we can put our pom-pom on the hat, we still have this tail to contend with at the base of the hat. And you see how this doesn't quite look completely finished yet? It doesn't quite match the others. So notice these two sort of loose looking pieces of stitching. I'm going to take my tail and loop it through those two pieces. You see how that makes this look all uniform now? Let me just show that to you one more time. So those two stitches just don't quite look right, like they're too loose. So we're going to weave our tail through those bottom two pieces to make the entire base of the hat look consistent. And then on the inside, you'll take whatever's left of the tail and tie it to just the nearest stitch on the inside of the hat. And that's going to secure that tail so it doesn't unravel. And if you have any leftover yarn once you've done that, you can just weave it into the other stitches to hide it. Now, the tail blends in so well, I actually am not even sure where it is. You've really got to be looking for it. And what's so great about a fluffy, soft yarn like this is that any tails that you have hiding in here are going to be really difficult to detect. Okay, now comes the final step, and in my opinion, the cherry on top, and that's attaching the pom-pom. So I still have my long tail at the top of the hat, and I have my pom-pom. Now these pom-poms come with a little elastic attached to them. So to attach this to my hat, I'm simply going to thread my yarn through the elastic part of the pom-pom, and then thread the tail through the topmost hole in the hat and pull it through to the inside. I know it might be tough to see this, but I'm merely going to tie this off with a knot somewhere on the inside, just like I did with the tail at the bottom. And make sure that you tie that knot super tight. And now, with whatever's left of my tail, I'll weave that into the inside of my hat, again, just like we did at the bottom. Now, you can do this up near the top, down one of the sides. It's really up to you. You just need to weave in your tail to hide it. And with that, we are done. Not bad, eh? I could tell you this thing is ridiculous. ridiculously cozy. So a couple of awesome pluses to this too. It makes a killer gift. You can make them for less than $10 a pop, and 3, they're totally customizable. This yarn comes in a bunch of colors, and the pom-poms do too. But now you know all the steps to make one yourself. So as I mentioned at the beginning, I have a few tips on sizing. Just to reiterate, I didn't need an entire skein of yarn to make this, so you definitely don't need to purchase more than one skein. But the size of your hat will depend on both the circumference and how many rows you make. My hat was, once more, 12 inches around and 8 rows up. But if you want to make this for a child, you could get away with 9 to 10 stitches for your initial chain that fits around the head, and then just 5 rows up. Super cute, right? Okay, before I let you go, I want to quickly mention the giveaway that I have going on right now. Just last week, I did a tutorial showing you how to paint buffalo plaid. And in that video, I announced that I'm giving one lucky crafter this buffalo plaid sign that you saw me create in that video. So I'm going to link to it right here and below in the description. And the really cool part is I'm going to customize it however the winner wants, with their family name, a festive phrase, whatever they want. So there are a few rules to follow to be eligible, and I have them all posted and how to enter down in the description. The deadline to enter is Monday, December 2nd, 2019. So you have just over a week as of the posting of this video to get in on this. Now, if you are into all things DIY like me, I'd like to personally invite you to join my creator community. More than 1,500 people have already joined, and it's where I share content exclusive to that group. The link to sign up is below, so check it out. And so you know, you do need to be a member of that group to be entered into that giveaway. Meanwhile, in between videos, guys, stay in touch with me. I'm on all the social channels. They are all listed below, and I always love hearing from you. You can also check out my website, katiefehlinger.com, to see what else I'm working on right now. I've got my hands in a lot of different projects right now, and I would absolutely love to have you along for the ride. If you liked this video, do me a solid. Hit that like button, share this with your fellow creators, and subscribe and ring the bell to get notified when new videos go up. But for now, thank you so much for watching. Keep creating your happy place, and I'll see you next Thursday. And 2, the little elastic attached to the... Do I look like I'm going to play the lute at a coffee shop or something? Ja oder nein? Can you dig it? Barfosaurus Rex. Let me know down into the comments. I always add like an extra syllable there. I really hope this doesn't totally crush my hair. It's not too bad. Good thing you don't have to look at me from the side. Okay, I keep missing my cue. One down, baby.